Now, I'm going to give you the advice I've built up over my whole life about fear, and it's going to change the way you approach it. First of all, the classic approach is wrong. How do I get rid of my fear? How do I make the fear disappear? That search is broken from the start. It's like asking, how do I make my girlfriend happy? You can't. Being happy is a skill that belongs to the person themselves, and nobody can make anybody else happy. Or it's like trying to convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced. Sometimes people refusing to be convinced is a choice. It has nothing to do with you presenting stronger, more logical arguments. Because the moment they're convinced, they take on responsibility, and that doesn't suit them. So how do I explain this more logically is not the right question there. That approach is simply wrong. And here, the problem starts in exactly the same way. The moment you go looking for a way to eliminate fear. You know why? Because fear is a thug. It bullies you. It pushes you around. When you try to get rid of it, when you try to push it out of the room, you look like a man who's standing in front of a possible fight thinking, how do I run away? But if you run, or if it becomes obvious that you're the type who runs, they come at you harder. If you stand tall in that moment and don't run, you become a deterrent, and it's very likely the other side steps back and hits the brakes instead. So when you say, how do I get rid of my fear, you're asking the wrong question. What you need to do is be more trouble than that thug of an emotion. You're going to be the bigger thug, against the feeling, against the thing you're afraid of. It's about whose will is stronger. If you become more dangerous than your fear, over time it dims in your mind, and you become desensitized to the thing that scared you. Asking, how do I get rid of my fear, is like asking which table you should hide under in the middle of a fight. You can't solve the problem that way. The way to solve it is to stay in the same room as your fear. That's how your comfort zone slowly widens. That's how the things you fear start to lose their meaning for you and you go numb to them. The point here isn't to remove the fear, it's to get used to its presence until it stops mattering. The fear is still there, but here's how it goes. That same familiar feeling shows up again. Except this time, maybe we give it 10 seconds of our attention, because we're used to it now and we do what we have to do. That's how it works. We don't sit there in horror for half an hour just because fear exists. Yes, there's fear. It was here yesterday, it's here today. We're still here, let's do what we came to do. This time, I'll probably give the fear 15 seconds of attention. After that, I'll have forgotten about it, and I'll do what needs doing. But if I sit there going, oh God, I'm so scared, I wish this fear would just go away, this is so uncomfortable, and I hand my mental focus over to it, it grows. Times 2, times 5, times 10. Why are you spoiling that emotion so much? What you need to do is give everything you've got to whatever is scaring you and stop feeding that pressure in your head with your attention. Let it sit there. It does no harm. Get desensitized to it over time. You just keep doing what you were going to do, because the other way, when you give the feeling of fear that much attention, you are the one making it the boss. Fear starts bossing you around. It runs you. It draws the line on what you can and can't do. But the moment you bully it, the moment you become more trouble than it is, things start to change. So the how do I get rid of it logic is a flawed, crippled search. You shouldn't even have a problem called removing fear. Once you do this, you'll notice fear bothering you far less, and you'll get to the point of, wait, when did it show up? When did it leave? I'm not afraid anymore. Very fast. Don't wrestle with fear. Don't engage with it that way, because when you fight it, you're actually creating resistance against that negative emotion ever leaving. So it grows, it never disappears, and it keeps bullying you. A big part of my own practice with fear actually comes from day game. As you know, approaching women we don't know taps into a kind of evolutionary fear inside us. When I go out onto the field and there's fear in me, and there is, if I'm trying to make that fear go away first, let me just talk to these people to warm up, I'm finished. I've walked myself into very barren ground. Instead, almost automatically, I give the fear no attention. The fear was there last year, it's here now, and we do things anyway. When I think like that, fear barely bothers me, present or not. I watched Free Solo yesterday. It tells the story of a famous climber who climbs without ropes or safety equipment. At one point in the film, talking about fear, he says something like, people talk about trying to suppress your fear. The second I heard that, I thought, those people have brought a huge amount of trouble on themselves because it's an agonizing road and it doesn't solve anything. If you approach fear that way, you're the guy in a fight asking which direction to run in. They'll press you harder and corner you. That fight with fear never ends, and it stays standing over you like a thug forever. And the climber goes on. He says, I look at it differently. He says he practices his moves over and over, slowly widening his comfort zone. From that, we can see he isn't looking for ways to escape his fear. While the fear is right there, he does what he needs to do and he gains power over it. If you stay reactive toward fear, if you keep responding to it, oh no, I'm scared because I'm scared, you just manufacture more things to be scared of. You could have gone in head first and been the man who handles it and solves it, and instead you react like a frightened little kid. You solve those problems by facing them and saying, fine, the fear can sit in the corner of my mind, no problem, let it be there. That way you become bigger than your fear, and this time, fear runs from you, because the real thug has entered the room. You become more trouble than your fear, and once you're trouble for it, your fear runs. And don't get into any of that, if I look at it from this angle, I'll feel less fear. If I think about it this way, the intensity will soften. That's weakness. Don't go looking for those. On the surface, it might look like you're doing something good, but those things multiply the fear. As long as you're trying to remove it, you won't be able to remove it. On the contrary, you'll be keeping the feeling of fear permanently on your agenda. It'll stick to your mind and never leave. If you adopt the method I'm describing, in time the fear will still be there, but it'll be like the wind. When you step outside, the wind is blowing, right? Most of the time, even though we feel it, we don't stop and say, the wind is blowing, because we've gotten used to its presence. It'll be exactly the same with fear. Here's how it'll go. Even when fear comes, it'll be far weaker and far shorter, and because you're not feeding it attention, it'll fade and vanish quickly. Just don't give fear your attention, don't create resistance to it leaving, and do what you need to do. Let it sit there. Challenge it and widen your comfort zone. So what do you think? How did you get past your fears? Did the advice I gave sit right with you? I'd be glad if you wrote your thoughts on this in the comments. And I'd ask you to support the video with a like.